Hey, Jerry Fetta here. I want to share with you today my number one thing, the first thing I wish I would have known before I started a sacred account, before I started doing infinite banking. Stay tuned to find out what it is. Hey, what's up? Jerry Fetta here, owner, founder, CEO of Wealth Dynamics, coming to you with today's Fetta Facts. All facts, no opinions. I want to give you some of the facts on the sacred account. You might have heard of infinite banking, becoming your own bank, bank on yourself. Various people use various names. I use the sacred account to describe this concept, but it's the idea of using a properly structured whole life insurance policy as my own banking system, right? Now, I learned about this, I would say my mid-20s. Before that, I was a Dave Ramsey financial advisor. Okay, if you've ever heard of SmartVestor or endorsed local providers, that was me. I was one of those. I was in about 8 different states. And so I was very into buying term insurance, investing the difference. I thought whole life insurance was the devil. And it wasn't until someone properly introduced the concept to me and showed me an actual illustration, right? An actual illustration of a real policy that basically refuted all of the things that I'd been taught about why whole life insurance is bad, right? And so I did, in one weekend, about 30 hours of research on this, right? Everything I could get my hands on. And I finally understood that there were different ways to design whole life insurance, okay? Now here's an interesting statistic. Again, all facts here. Only about 6% of life insurance policies actually utilize their cash value for loans. Okay, only about 6%. So when you look at like whole life insurance versus term insurance and that ratio, it's about 1% of all whole life insurance policies that are designed properly. Okay, so I realize, 99% of the time, a cash value policy is being designed incorrectly. And then only about 6% of the time when there's cash value is it actually actively being borrowed against. And I started to see why, right? And without getting into all of the mumbo jumbo about insurance, the agent you're working with has a lot to do with it. Right? Now, I was the agent that I was working with, and I was a new agent at this. Think about this. I'd gone from only doing term insurance, only doing mutual funds, only doing retirement accounts, whole life insurance is the devil, all of that stuff, to then saying, okay, I'm going to explore this new concept. Right? So that's what I did. I explored. I dipped my toes in myself with my first policy, and everything looked good. I did the illustration. It was with a great company. Everything was set up correctly, and I was actually blown away at how good it looked. Okay? Now, I went through the underwriting. I funded my policy. I peed in a cup. They took my blood. I did all the long application processes. And I was kind of used to that because I'd done life insurance for so long. But it hit me that this was not an easy process, right? I set the policy up. It was done finally. It took several months. And I was itching. I was like ready to go. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna use this for paying off my debt. I'm gonna do real estate investing. I'm gonna buy a car. Right? And my first policy, I started with only about $500 a month. Okay? Now, I was under the impression, and this is the thing I wish I knew. I was under the impression, I was like, man, I could dump as much money as I'd like to into this, up to my MEC line. Right? There's an annual MEC line. And so the company that I was with, they were like, yeah, that's true. The MEC line is the limit, the upper limit of what you can put into the policy per year before it becomes MEC. That's insurance nerd speak for modified endowment contract, which is the point if you put in too much, you lose the tax-free benefit. So the company was like, totally, you're only putting in, $6,000 a year. Your MEC limit is so much higher than that. However, we have what's called a window. And I was like, okay, I didn't know about the window, right? Immediately, I'm kind of feeling some buyer's remorse. Look what just arrived. I just got my copy of the Blueprint to Financial Freedom. Hey, enjoy the rest of the content. I don't want to interrupt you too long, but if you go to jerryfetta.com/B2F promo or click the link in the description, you can get your copy now. Tell me about this window, right? And I'm going to show you the window idea on the whiteboard here. Now, let's say, just for the sake of math, let's use some numbers here. And I don't remember what my exact MEC limit was on this first policy, right? But we have 2 different types of contributions, right? Contributions, the money that I am putting in. Contributions, premium deposits, whatever you want to call them. The first type we have is called scheduled. That is the amount that I agreed to do per month or per year. So I was doing $500 per month. That's $6,000 for the year, right? So that's my schedule, right? So let's say that was $6,000 per year. Now, there's also what's called unscheduled. Okay, the unscheduled contribution has a lot to do with my MEC limit. This is the upper threshold of what I can put into one of these policies. Okay, so let's say, just for the sake of numbers, let's say that my unscheduled was $30,000 total, right? That you can put in $30,000 a year without any sort of negative tax consequences on your sacred account. Beautiful. So I'm like, that's awesome. Now, keep in mind, I was testing this concept. I was dipping my toe in the water. I had more money I could have put in, but my idea was, well, let me get it set up first. I'll do the $500 a month. When I see that it's working, I'll just add the rest of the money in because I've got this unscheduled MEC limit that I can put up to $30,000 a year for. So I get to that point, right? And I'm like, okay, so I'm ready to put in more money now. And I contact the insurance company and I'm like, I want to put in, I want to do my MEC limit. And they said, Jerry, there's a window, right? You have what's called your anniversary date. And when that anniversary date occurs, that is when you can put more money into your policy, right? Now, I had just opened this a couple months ago. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, whoa, hang on. You're telling me I need to wait like 10 more months before I can actually like put enough money into this thing to do something with it? You see, and I didn't know that. So that's one of those things is when you design your policy, you want to think about how much do you want to use on your loan? How much do you want to borrow? Because you're only going to be able to borrow a percentage of what you put in. So if I'm putting in a properly designed policy, anywhere from 60 to 90%, that's how much of my money that I've contributed that should be available for loans in year one. 60 to 90% of what I put in. If I put in $10,000, I should be able to borrow $6,000 to $9,000 depending on how I've chosen to design my policy. There's various reasons for why you would do 60 or 70 or 80 or 90. We could talk about that in another video, but the choice is yours. And your agent, your consultant, your licensed professional should be walking you through those choices, right? Why would you design it a certain way? Why would you have more or less liquidity? I was doing 90%. So I was like, okay, I'm going to put in 30 grand. I'm going to borrow almost all of it. That's like $27,000 right away that I can pull out of this thing and I can like pay off a substantial car loan, or I could go invest in my business. But they told me no. The company said no. When your anniversary date happens, then you have a window of maybe 1 to 2 months. And during that window, then and only then can you put money, extra contributions, unscheduled contributions up to the MEC limit into your policy. I wasn't thinking with that. So here's the rule that I want you to have. If you're looking at setting up a sacred account, if you've already set up an account before, sacred account, infinite banking, whatever you're using it or calling it, right? I want you thinking about not how much money do I want to put in, how much money do I want to take out? And when do I want to take that money out? Because if I want to take out $50,000, for example, and I want to take it out within 3 months of opening the policy so I can go do real estate, I probably want to make sure that one of two things happens, okay? The first thing I want to make sure of, this is option number 1 here, right? I want to make sure of, let me just clear my board off for you guys. I want to make sure that my company is going to let me do that, either on an unscheduled basis, so that's option number 1. You want to have what's called flexible unscheduled contributions. That's the first thing. Flexible, unscheduled. Flexible, unscheduled. That means that it's flexible. I can put it in whenever I want to. It's unscheduled. I don't need to commit to it. So I could say, oh, great, let's start with $500 a month. And whenever I want, I can drop in 5 grand or 10 grand or the full remaining 30, and I don't have to wait till the anniversary date. That's called flexible, unscheduled. Some companies have this, some companies don't, okay? Or I need to do what's called a dump in. A dump in. A dump in means that when I start the policy application, from the get-go, I'm like, hey, I want to drop in 30 grand or I want to drop in 50 grand. And that's not going to be something I'm going to continue to do. It's a one-time dump in. That's why it's called a dump in. Right? It's a one-time thing I'm going to do, and then I'll do my $500 a month or my $1,000 a month or whatever I'm choosing for my scheduled contributions. Because scheduled are not flexible. right? Scheduled means I'm committing to it. It's like a car payment or a mortgage payment, except for it's money that I'm funding my banking system with, right? It's not flexible. If I commit to 500, by golly, I better have 500 available, right? If I can't do that, I should be thinking about that before I start my policy. Okay, and then also the schedule, because it's scheduled, I can't be like, all right, guys, I'm not going to do it this month. Or I can't be like, all right, guys, instead of 500 this month, let's do 2,000. Like, scheduled means it's that. 500 was the agreement, we're keeping the 500. So you're either doing flexible unscheduled or you're doing a dump in. Now, the reason I wanted to share this video today was because when I talk with people that are either setting their policy up, they're in the process, they're learning about it, or they've already set one up. And sometimes they find this out like I did after the fact. No harm, no foul. I still have, I have 6 sacred accounts now. So obviously it's worked very well for me. I keep getting more of them. But they wish they would have known this, just like I did. I'm like, man, if I would have known that from the get-go, I would have been able to start taking loans sooner. I would have been able to start using my policy sooner. Because parking your money in a life insurance policy is no different than parking your car in the garage. Doesn't mean you won the race. Doesn't mean you're doing anything cool with it. Doesn't mean that you are using it. It's just in the garage, just like the money is in the policy. When do you plan on taking it out of the garage? What are you going to use it for? Right? And you want to make sure there are no restrictions around that part of things. So I hope that this Fetta Facts video helped you. I'm going to do more of these. I want to talk about life insurance, real estate, gold and silver, annuities, estate planning, all these things. I want to drop facts on them so that as you're going through the process, if you have these things already and you're like, man, that's happening to me. I just set up a sacred account. I just set up an infinite banking. I just set up Bank on Yourself, whatever it is, whoever you're doing it with. And I didn't know that, and I wish I would have. You can start getting some help on the back end, right? Because just like the car analogy, you can buy a Lamborghini. You better know how to drive it. And the dealership isn't usually the one that's going to give you lessons. You need to go somewhere that's going to teach you how to properly use that tool, that vehicle, just like you can buy properly designed whole life insurance with a high early cash value and design it for banking. Doesn't mean that you know how to use it. And the agent, he may have not even used it. Some of these agents, guys, they're not even owning what they're selling you. They don't even use the policy themselves. They just, I have a license, you want insurance? Sure, I'll totally sell you some insurance, right? Who wouldn't, right? But if they're not using it, they're not going to be able to help you very much. The other thing is a lot of agents are single agents. They don't have a support team. So while they have good intentions, they might even use the policy themselves. Once it's set up, once it's enforced, they don't have the resources and systems to train you on how to use it effectively, to make sure you're getting those quote unquote driving lessons so you can make the most out of the vehicle that you've just put your money into. That's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like the video. Comment below, by the way, if you want to talk more about this, if you have questions. Definitely subscribe to the channel. I'll see you next time. I want to thank you for watching my video. If you learned something from this, if it was value to you, what I'd like to do is I'd actually like to give you a free copy of my book, Blueprints Financial Freedom. This is perfect for those that are on my channel learning this stuff and you want to take it to the next level. So if you go to the link jerryfetta.com, just my first and last name, jerryfetta.com/B2F promo, or click the link in the description, grab a free copy, we'll send it out to you. Can't wait to get you a copy in your hands.